Time once again for the Kaufman Corner podcast with you as always, former Royal, and of course host of Breaking the Norm, Les Norman, David Lesky from Inside the Crown. My name is Soren Petro from Sports Radio 810 WHB. We are talking Royals baseball. We're also talking World Series, right? We're going to break down the Jays and Dodgers. What lessons can we learn from them about the Kansas City Royals? We'll maybe compare and contrast a little bit of those two clubs to your Kansas City Royals. How many of these Royals would crack the rotation, would crack the lineup, the bullpen for the Dodgers and Blue Jays? We'll discuss that. And a contract extension for Vinny Pasquantino. Everybody loves him, but is it the right thing to go ahead and put the extension out there to Vinny Pasquantino? We're talking about it right here, right now on the Kaufman Corner podcast.
You're listening to the Kaufman Corner podcast, the most in-depth analysis of the Kansas City Royals, breaking down the Royals like no one else can. Kaufman Corner is hosted by David Lesky, Les Norman, and Soren Petro. David Lesky is an accomplished author and the publisher of the Inside the Crown Royals baseball newsletter. Les Norman is a former Royals outfielder. He's the host of Breaking the Norm with Les Norman on Sports Radio 810 WHB, as well as the author of Teaching the Tools of Hitting. Soren is the award-winning afternoon drive host of the program on Sports Radio 810 WHB in Kansas City. Kaufman Corner is proudly brought to you by Gann Asphalt and Concrete, Kansas City's nationally recognized full-service paving and pavement maintenance contractor, making parking lot problems disappear in Kansas City since 1994. Free consultations, no commissions, in-house crews, and every project comes with a written warranty. Find them online at GannAsphalt.com or call 816-484-3338. Gann Asphalt and Concrete, one contractor, all things parking lot. Now, here are your hosts, David Lesky, Les Norman, and Soren Petro.
Thank you very much, Curtis. We do appreciate it. And the World Series is here, gentlemen. And 3-2, the Blue Jays are leading. This is unexpected. The Dodgers basically about 2-1 favorites. If you wanted to bet the Dodgers beforehand, I think they were minus 195 coming into the series. So I think a little bit of a surprise as they head away from Toronto and or head away from Los Angeles and head back to Toronto in this series. Les, how about it? When you look at these two clubs, what jumps at you about the Dodgers and Blue Jays and why they are where they are right now?
Yeah, I got to be honest with you. I'm still in an utter state of shock. I think I had mentioned coming in that was there anybody. This just goes to show you that the World Series, well, first the postseason, but the World Series is a completely different beast. I mean, it's anybody, anytime can get hot. And I feel like the offense of the Blue Jays and even some of the starting pitching is showing that they are not to be bullied. And not only that, they're doing a little bullying themselves. So we didn't see that. Toronto's in a fantastic position. I mean, Toronto can win one game out of two against the Dodgers at home. I mean, it's not impossible that the Dodgers wouldn't sweep them, but it's just the way things are looking. I'm just in shock. The Dodgers offense, I mean, they only have two guys that are hitting 300 or above. It's Ohtani and Teoscar Hernandez. Everybody else is pretty much in the tank. And then you go down the list of the Blue Jays, and they're crushing right now. I mean, the game the other night, first pitch of the game, home run. 2 pitches later, home run. And come to find out that Savage was so good that the home run by Vlad Guerrero Jr. ended up being the game winner, I think. Wasn't the final 6-1? Did I see that right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because I watched the most until like the last couple outs. So, it's been amazing to watch. I am still in shock, but I also love an underdog story, so it's been fun.
Yeah, they are the underdog based upon the odds coming in, David. But, you know, during the course of the season, if you stack it up by wins and losses, they didn't look like the underdog. Like, is this just a case where people fell in love with the Dodgers, fell in love with the names, and in reality, if you dig through the numbers, that the Blue Jays should have been given a lot more respect coming into the series? Or is it just, guess what? Baseball playoffs, incredibly small sample size.
I think it's much more the latter, but I think the Blue Jays deserve more respect than they were given. And I mean, we all said this last week. The Dodgers are going to win the World Series. They still might. I think that going into Game 5, my thought was if the Blue Jays had to win Game 5 to win the World Series, whereas the Dodgers didn't. Obviously, makes it a lot easier for the Blue Jays to win and a lot harder for the Dodgers to win now. But I don't think the Blue Jays could have won 2 in a row, 3 in a row. I think, which I guess actually it's 4 in a row. But I do think that the Dodgers can win 2 in Toronto. So I don't want to pop the champagne yet for Toronto, but I think that maybe they were underestimated a little bit. The fact that their lineup truly is a little bit deeper. I mean, Addison Barger has an 1147 OPS in the World Series. He looks great. And did he make his debut in Kansas City last year? I think he did. And he looked horrible for most of last season, I feel like. Which, other side note, the Blue Jays make a lot of debuts against the Royals. Just FYI, it's weird. But, I mean, you look up and down their lineup, they've got multiple guys who can beat you, whereas the Dodgers look old. I mean, they look like a team that they're going to go out and offer and probably get Kyle Tucker, in my opinion. And people are going to say, oh, they're spending too much. They need a guy. They need more bats because their lineup is not deep enough.
Yeah, no, I listen, it is amazing how the Dodgers have all this firepower, all these showy names, but then you do look at it and you're like, Kiki Hernandez? Like, this is like, and I know he's played a valuable role for the Dodgers, but you're like if you're a fantasy baseball player, not to quantify everything to fantasy sports, but like you do get a vibe like when you're like looking at, okay, who are we bidding on here at the end when we're going $1 or $2? Who are we picking up off the waiver wire? And you're seeing names, you're like, this guy's playing a prominent role for the Dodgers. Like, they've got a $500 million payroll when you throw in the luxury tax that they're paying. And this is where they are. Like, Les, we talked about the bullpen, which it was amazing in Game 3 for the Dodgers. That it was able to keep them in that. You just kept waiting for like, this is where it's going to implode. But how do you spend $350 million in player salary? Forget about the 150, maybe it's 340 and 160 in luxury tax. I can't remember what it is, but it roughly comes out to $500 million total expenditure, but well over $300 million in payroll. And like, this guy's coming out of the pen. Like it is shocking, to David's point, how Shohei Ohtani is incredible and has a big paycheck, but there are some guys you're like, wow, this guy's playing for the Dodgers, and it scares you a little.
Last week, you guys nailed this. I wasn't sure that I look at the statistics, but I wasn't sure that the bullpen was going to be as bad as it was, but you both nailed it. You said it's going to be the Dodgers starting rotation versus the Blue Jays hitters, and the bullpen was not great for LA, and it hasn't been. But actually, I mean, between Trine and Bandit and Sheehan, you got a 5.4, an 18, and a 9. But then you also look at the Blue Jays bullpen. It's between Varland, Fluharty, and Little. It's 9, 5.4, and 9. So it's a little bit less bad with Toronto, but it's just really glaring, except for that the 18 inning game for LA. And the one thing about LA is obviously with the big market and it's LA, they'll cut loose where they need to cut loose, and they'll spend where they need to spend. And so, whereas other big market teams and middle market teams are going to watch every dollar and try to make the pieces fit, LA is going to spend money. They'll spend money to get out of contracts, let alone spend money to bring guys in. And so I don't know that that's a concern as far as their payroll goes. But it has been, their bullpen has been atrocious. It hasn't been great. And like I said, you guys nailed it.
Yeah. I think this Vlad and Savage are shoving. Yes, that's a big part of it. That does also speak to the, sample size that, okay, a couple of guys get hot, you can get it done. But does it also speak to the volatile nature, David, of, like we said, it's the Dodgers starting pitching. What was it? The White Sox back in, would have been
2005, the World Series
team? Yeah, 2005.
Yeah.
Where like their starting pitchers were all throwing complete games. And it was like, when the Dodgers were doing that in the playoffs, it's like, wow, this is the first time since the White Sox. And then it became like, okay, well, this is the plan. Like, this plan can actually work, when in reality, nobody's been stacking complete games in the big leagues for many, many years now. And so we find out that, no, you're going to have to get to that bullpen. And by the way, the bullpen of the Dodgers was forced this year to throw 657 innings, right? 658 if you round up. And I bring that up because the Blue Jays threw 597, the Royals threw 562. So while you love the starting pitching of the Dodgers, in reality, they had to go to the pen a lot, and that meant when they went to the bullpen and it wasn't that great, that they had to rely on the bats. And a lot of times, bats get a little bit silenced in the postseason because middle relievers don't get on the mound, except in 18-inning games, and fourth and fifth starters don't get on the mound. And so, was it a little bit of fool's gold in getting that excited about Dodgers starting pitching?
I mean, I think it was and it wasn't, because if you look at the names, it's Yamamoto, who also shoved himself. So he's the one who I think is he's let's put him away from this conversation because that plan worked. But I mean, Tyler Glasnow, he's a guy you should count on. Who started? I'm blank. Blake Snell, who started 2 games. He hasn't been good. He hasn't been good in either game. He's a 2-time Cy Young winner, though. Yeah, I mean, but
has he? How much of that was him, and how much was like Teoscar Hernandez? Needs to catch the ball, or at least let it drop and play. I mean, like one run from Blake Snell, and as we sit here taping on a Thursday, last night's game was not on him. I mean,
right, for sure.
At third base that should have been at first if they had somebody who could competently play right field, or at least had competently played that ball. And so is a little bit of like, okay, you wanted the bat, you wanted the protection, but you also get the glove that comes with them.
Well, it was also interesting. I thought last night, you were talking about decisions. I understand Andy Paz is not hitting, but Blake Snell gets a lot of fly balls, and you put that defensive outfield in there. I mean, that is tough. And I will also say it's not. I want to say this correctly, so it might take me a second, but I don't mean to say that Shohei Ohtani is a problem for your team, because he's clearly the guy you want. But when you have Shohei Ohtani, Teoscar Hernandez has to play right field, and so you lose the DH, which you don't care because you've got Shohei Ohtani DHing. So I don't mean that, but you've got guys who shouldn't play the field every day. Teoscar Hernandez might be a better right fielder if he played 85 games a year out there. But if you want him in the lineup, he has to play right field because you've got the all-time DH. And so that in some ways he limits the roster. You don't care that he does, but it leads to situations like last night where Hernandez misplays that fly ball. Some right fielders would catch it. Most right fielders should at least stop it from being more than a single. But you're right. And I also think that you look at the names in this rotation, these guys should be giving them 6-7 innings every night based on what they've done and their salaries.
I want to ask you real quick, David, and I want to get Les's thoughts on this, but do you know the numbers on Mookie Betts playing shortstop? Like what are the defensive numbers?
They're phenomenal. I'm going to look them up real quick because I can't remember exactly, but his defensive run saved. I mean, he's going to win the Gold Glove at shortstop, which is crazy. Let me find that real quick.
Not bad for an outfielder.
Yeah, no kidding.
It's so his defensive run saved 17. I believe that might be first among shortstops, if not it's top 3, and 5 outs above average in 1,278 innings this year, which he had never played shortstop in the big leagues before 23. 531 innings last year, almost 1,300 this year. Obviously, he was a second baseman in the minors, so this is not the first time he's played infield. But yeah, he's been really good out there.
Okay, he's been really good out there, but he's OPSing 648 in the postseason and 732 in the regular season. Like, that's great. You found a place, and it is amazing that he can go play defensively. I was like, you got to be kidding me, right? From when he was kind of toying around with it last year, like, again, fantasy baseball nerd, you're like, oh, position eligibility. His value just went way up, except for, the offense didn't go way up. Last year, 19 home runs. This year, 20 home runs. 2 previous years playing in the outfield, 39 and 35, right? Like now, also Father Time is catching up, but there is an element. It's not catching up to his defense, obviously, but is the defense taking away his offense? And that is, so the question becomes the Dodgers. Baseball lends itself less to this more than maybe any other sport, and you can just collect pieces because it's such an individualized one-on-one battle offensively. So when, are we collecting, players, or are we building a team, right? The building of the team, that there's less chemistry than, say, a basketball team. 5 guys that score 30 a game, somebody's got to pass the ball, right? In basketball, there's a little bit more of that goes into it, but there is still an element of they kind of are just pushing these pieces where it fits to put the names down. And I do feel like they kind of just walked through the regular season waiting to get to the postseason, knowing they'd be measured that way. But this isn't a 108 win team for all that they've spent and all the talent. Maybe they could be if they wanted to, if that's what they were going to be measured by, but maybe not. Maybe the pieces don't fit. And while it's a great collection of talent, it's not a great team.
Yeah. Soren, when you said that Mookie in those 2 years hit 35 and 39 home runs respectively, was he leading off during those 2 years?
I'd have to go back and look.
That's fine.
I think mostly. But
here's why I say it. Well, one of you.
Well, real quick. Yesterday was the first time he hit below second in a big league lineup, which is crazy.
And see,
ever. I heard that on the radio. Let me. I'll confirm.
You can't trust those guys.
It was satellite radio, so even worse.
Well, the reason why I asked that is because, first of all, this isn't necessarily defending him because he's still got to be the one to hit. But I imagine that hitting between Shohei Ohtani and Freddie Freeman is not the easiest thing because, even if Ohtani's hitting all those home runs, then, you are leading off. But you should be getting more pitches when Freddie Freeman is behind you. But, it's just got to be a weird thing. I mean, the setup of it seems like he'd get more fastballs and pitches to hit. Maybe he's just succumbing to the pressure of hitting between Ohtani and Freeman. I mean, he's Mookie Betts, though, and his athleticism, and Soren, you had mentioned that, Father Time might be catching up with his hitting. I agree with that because it can. He is such, though, a gifted athlete that he's just able to do that. Now, I don't think that he would be able to sustain this kind of defense at shortstop for another 2, 3, 4 years. But you're also talking about a guy that's bowled a 300 game. And I know people talk about that, but his athleticism and his prowess goes beyond the baseball field. I mean, he's a gifted athlete in anything that he ever touches where he has to, be in some kind of physical competition. So I understand that part of it. But the bottom line is, though, he's Mookie Betts. He's won 3 World Series rings so far, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so he's won 3 World Series rings, so pressure shouldn't be getting to him. And so if he's won 3 World Series rings, he's hitting between those two guys, but his offense is declining the way it is. I mean, still 19, 20 home runs is nothing, it's still pretty good. However, it's not like him. And so I think you just get to a point where you got to move him down in the order and stop just putting guys in there. And like you had said, you need to build this team. And right now, Mookie Betts is probably not your 2 hitter. Maybe he's your 5, 6 hitter. Maybe eventually in a year or two, he's your 7 hitter. It's a pretty good 7, 8 hitter, even a 6 hitter that can drive the ball out of the park too. So,
yeah.
I will say, I believe it's with the Dodgers. He hadn't hit below second because he did hit early in his career. Started at least. He pinch hit a couple times, but I know this isn't Dodger Stadium corner; it's Kauffman corner. But I wonder a little bit: did they move him to the infield, partially saying we know his bat is on the decline, we know he can play good defense there, and you can accept a little bit less offense in the middle infield than you can in right field. So maybe that was their plan. I don't know. I don't think it was. I think it was more out of necessity, but interesting.
Yeah, it's interesting is a great word for it, and we'll see if it ends up resulting in another championship because you're not spending that kind of money to come away with just a good season, right? Like you're spending that kind of money.
He has 7 more years under contract.
Wow.
For a small guy, like that's the thing is like he's not just gonna when the bat speed slows down, he's not just gonna muscle the ball over the wall. Length it, like the length of his arms, everything. It gets tougher.
You want to talk about Maikel Garcia again? Go back to last week, the contract extension. When did Mookie Betts start to decline? 32. He's 33 this year. So
that's a great point. We want to get into how the Royals compare to this team, what Royals could crack the lineup. We'll do it after we hear from our friends at Italian Delight, where they have daily lunch specials under $10. Italian Delight was the first restaurant to bring true New York-style pizza to Kansas City almost 50 years ago. They sell whole pies or pizza by the slice, or enjoy their classic strombolis, calzones, and sausage rolls. Sandwich lovers, check out their lineup of hot and cold subs, the combo, the meatball, or the Philly cheesesteak, just to name a few. And don't forget the pasta, their famous lasagna and classic chicken Alfredo, always hit the spot. And if you're hungry for lunch, check out their daily lunch specials, starting at under $10. Italian Delight can even cater your next work function or party. Dine in, carry out, or delivery, it's Italian Delight. Located just 3 minutes east of Kansas Speedway at 8145 State Ave in KCK. Check out the menu and order online at ItalianDelightKS.com. Kansas City's own Italian Delight. Northland Injury Law, Kansas City's Google 5-star rated personal injury lawyers, serving KC for more than 40 years, voted Kansas City's #1 accident lawyers, helping people with serious injuries from car accidents, work accidents, falls, and other personal injuries. Northland Injury Law doesn't get paid unless they get money for their client. Don't wait, get compensated now. If you have a case, text HURT to 22222. That's HURT to 22222, or call 816-400-HURT. That's 816-400-4878. The choice of a lawyer is an important one and should not be based solely upon advertisements. All right, let's talk about the difference between the Royals and the Jays. I gave you those numbers about the bullpen. I think a couple of things jump out at me when we talk about the hitting, and this isn't going to shock anyone, but we know home runs hit by these three clubs. The Dodgers this year hit 244, the Blue Jays 191, the Royals hit 159. I know that doesn't shock anyone, but, I will continue to state the Royals need to quit talking about how the home run is unattainable, right? And need to focus in on doing it. And then the obvious on-base percentage, the Blue Jays 333, the Dodgers 327, the Royals 309, right? Like, those are the things that jump at me offensively. Who less in your mind, like, we know Bobby Wood Jr., it could play for anybody, and they'd move Mookie to second or something, or Bobby to second, but there are certain guys, but how many of these guys on this Royals team or where is the question mark as to could they crack these lineups for the Royals and Jays, Les?
It's a great question, and thank you for making me think way more than I usually do, man. This was an interesting one. I think that Garcia, I look at Muncy and Edman in their positions, and I know there's the home run factor, but I feel like Michael Garcia could fit on that team pretty well and what he could do, versatile at those positions. He's not going to hit the home runs the Dodgers probably want, at least not yet, but he's going to hit a ton and he's going to get on base. I look at Mookie Betts in that slot, man. I tell you, Michael Garcia could be, if yes, Witt could be there as well. But if Witt wasn't there, Garcia would also be a good number 2 in that slot. He could also be a good number 5, number 6 in that slot. Maybe he wouldn't be because of the home runs they hit. But regardless of that, I think Garcia would be a great fit. Now, I can mention pitchers on this too, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think even maybe on both sides, I did this on kind of both sides. I think that a healthy Cole Reagans could fit well into either one of these rotations. I mean, because he's just downright nasty.
Sure.
I think Noah Cameron actually could fit on the 5 just because he's so deceptive and his curveball is so good. I mean, you've got guys on both of these teams that they're showing they can hit 99, 100 mile an hour fastballs. The Dodgers are chasing a lot, but they still have good enough hitters. I think that, they can hit guys that can really run it up there, but Cameron's 91 to 94 is really deceptive because his curveball's so big, so good. His motion is so deceptive. So I think he would fit good in there. I think that Luinder Avila is Avila, however you say his last name. I mean, It is a small sample size, but that dude is nasty. I think he'd be a good fit in a bullpen with a little more time under his belt, a little more experience. I think after Lynch's last year, he'd be a good fit in that bullpen. Schreiber possibly could fit. But then finally, the main one I would say is either one of these bullpens could use a guy like Lucas Erceg. I mean, Erceg has done really well. I think that he'd be a great fit into either one. We're not going to give him to them at all. We want him here. But, I think that he would fit nicely in there. And I'll pass it along to David after that.
David, let me give you some numbers here that I was looking up just by, their numbers collectively, right? So when I say catchers, this is all the catchers for each team. Like the positions where the Royals actually have a better OPS than these either one of these two teams. First base, overall, the Royals 811 OPS, slots in above the Jays 801, Dodgers 848. Second base, the Royals 640 OPS tops the Blue Jays 617. The Royals at third base, to Les's point, 769 top OPS amongst the three clubs. So collectively, basically, Michael Garcia overall OPS wise was better. Shortstop, the Royals win that easily with Bobby Wood Jr. But the 3 outfield spots, the Royals are by far way worse. The DH spot, the Royals are way worse. And that's kind of interesting because Salvi factors in there. So, Salvi makes them very competitive at the catcher spot, but he kind of torpedoes the DH spot. I mean, one of the things I look at this, I go, Salvi's got to become an 80, 85 game catcher and stop with playing him at first because he
max
liability.
maximum.
Yeah, he becomes a liability bat-wise. Or maybe dare I say it, 60 games behind the dish in 2025 over at DH and first base because his lack of on-base kind of torpedoes the production at those spots. And just real quick, overall outfield, I mean, we know I'm not splitting an atom here. We know that's the problem for the Royals. Like their overall outfield just is not getting it done. Their OPS basically roughly 633, and they're chasing 712 for the Dodgers, 755 or 751 for the Blue Jays. Like, it's where you think it would be. We know they don't get on base enough. We know they don't get enough home runs. I think it's kind of surprising. Maikel Garcia is plenty good offensively at third. He might have more value at short in a trade than maybe he brings to third base, but he's plenty good at third base when you compare him to what those other teams have there, even though he's not the traditional type of third baseman. Les's point about the on base is right on point.
Yeah, I mean the Royals, they have good players. they don't have enough good players. That's the issue. It's not. You look at the top of the Royals roster. I think the top of the Royals roster competes with the Dodgers and the Blue Jays. The problem is the top of the Royals roster ends a lot sooner than the top of the Dodgers roster. And I mean, that's really what it comes down to, because you look, I mean, I just repeat a little bit here, but like, I think Garcia and Witt find a home on either team. You figure, I mean, I know Ernie Clement's on a heater, but you'd take Maikel Garcia over him. I don't think anybody would argue that. I think you'd move Clement around, or you'd move Garcia around, or both. I don't know. I agree. Cole Reagan fits on a staff. I think Estevez, especially with both teams' bullpen issues, Urseg, some combination in the Royals bullpen. I think you've got guys who can fit there. And I looked position by position, like starting pitcher 1, Reagans versus Gausman, Reagans. I take healthy Cole Reagans over him.
Yeah.
I don't take any Royals starting pitcher though over their comparative Dodgers starting pitcher, but I would take Cole Reagans in the Dodgers rotation. So I think you'd put him at 3 or 4 there and not 1 or 2. But yeah, I mean, it like I said, it comes down to the fact that the Royals just don't have enough of those good players. And they don't even have to have great players. They just need the bottom of the roster is top of the roster isn't as deep, but the bottom of the roster is worse too. And so you raise the floor. That's a really easy way to gain 4, 5, 6, 7 wins over the course of a season. And the Blue Jays floor is much higher than the Royals, and so is the Dodgers. And that's a big part of why they're where they are and why the Royals are where they are right now. But yeah, there are a lot of players who I think would fit on either one of these World Series teams.
Les, here's one of the things that jumps at me as well, comparing the Royals to these clubs. I mean, here are the Dodgers' top pitchers by games started, right? 30 for Yamamoto, 22 for Kershaw, Glasnow 18, Dustin May 18, Shohei Ohtani 14, and some of those 14 are like 1 and 2 inning little opener.
He rehabbed in the big leagues.
Yeah,
right.
Basically what he was doing. Sheehan 12, Snell 11, Sasaki 8, and then on down into more single digits. Like, they could weather the storm of not having starting pitching, right? That's one of the things that jumps at me, Les, is that like there's no scenario. Like, the Royals didn't get there this year because they had pitching injuries. The Dodgers always have pitching injuries. The Dodgers never get, the year the Royals had 2 years ago where everybody seemingly got 30 plus starts, never happens. But that's where the payroll comes in. It's what frustrates me about people being like, well, look, the Brewers are there with that. Yes, but are they there 10 years in a row? Like, that's the thing about the Dodgers. Like, yes, there's always a small revenue clubs that get in there. And the Brewers are the best example right now of a team that does so many things right that they can weather some bad news. Mm-hmm. But the difference between the Royals and this year and last year was they had to weather bad news. They had to weather injuries. They couldn't do it. That payroll just keeps stuffing the Dodgers back in there, because even though they really didn't get that much production out of all that money they spent on their starting pitching, they still got there, and now to this point, they've been pretty healthy with those guys here in the big leagues. Otani's back, Snell's back, Yamamoto's back. Like they could weather them not being there in the regular season, but now they're getting the best of them when it really counts in the postseason, which is a little bit fluky, but it's also why the Dodgers are where they are, and that's stone cold hard cash.
Right. It's all it comes down to. And even if their struggles this year happen, they're still going to continue to spend money. It's not like they're going to say, okay, the formula is not working anymore. We're not going to spend that money. We're just going to develop within. No, that's not LA. That's not big market. It doesn't work that way. And so you see, with their starting pitching, you see this kind of steady downward decline as the starting pitching rolls on. But even at the bottom end of the Dodgers starting pitching, you still have guys that can do a good job and get it done. Now, we're not even talking injuries yet, but then you look at like the Royals, you've got these guys, and then where, okay, now who? We got all these. Now you bring in the injuries, and you're forced to do things that you wouldn't normally do. You're forced to bring in guys to start, and it doesn't compare because they don't have the money to spend, or they don't spend that kind of money. That's what a small market team does. So to your point, to shorten it, it is all about the money. You can't compete with that. And you probably won't be able to compete. Now, John Sherman's done a good job spending more money than probably what we're used to, and he probably will because he's committed, and JJ's on that train as well, and that's fantastic. I love that. But again, you just can't compete with, you said what was it, 500 million payroll this year, including the tax. That's a lot. And what is the Royals right now again? I don't know what their
130
payroll is this year.
32.
Yeah, that's not even close.
David, I mean, the Benjamins, right? I mean, like I'm all for the Dodgers do a lot of good things baseball wise. But like and I'm happy to give them their props. Okay. But I don't like when it's just pushed aside that, you know what, they spend money too, which is a giant part of the equation for why they are where they are.
Yeah. I mean, being smart and spending money is better than just spending money or just being smart. They combine both things, and I mean you're right. You name the starts from these guys. You look at their Tyler Glasnow is making $100 million. Yamamoto is making $300 million. Otani is $700 million, really $2 million a year. And who am I missing? Blake Snell is making $100-something million. They didn't need those. Yamamoto made 30 starts. They didn't need the rest of those guys to make 20 starts even, and they won 93 games. It's funny we're talking about the Dodgers almost like as a failure this year when the worst they can do is lose the World Series in 6 games. It's very Chief. It's right. It's Chiefs-ish, honestly. Different payroll structure, but they're able to, like you said, withstand $100 million pitchers going down. The Royals gave 2 starts to Rich Hill because they had injuries. The Dodgers in 2025 would never give 2 starts to Rich Hill because they don't have to. And I'm not saying the Royals did wrong. I think
not even after
Royals
an 18-inning regular season game.
Yeah. I mean, they did what they had to do, and that's what they had to do was go to Rich Hill. The Dodgers didn't have to do that because they spent a crap load of money and were able to move on to the next guy. And some of that money, by the way, is spent in the ways the Royals could spend money and are now. They weren't before. Development, scouting, all that. Like Emmett Sheehan, he struggled in that one outing, but he looked good on Monday night. Sheehan's a guy, when the Royals were selling in 2023, I wanted him badly because I watched one start I scouted one start on grainy internet television, so I knew everything about him. And I wanted him bad because he looked incredible. Got hurt because they all get hurt. And he had a really good year this year. You look at his numbers, you'd be surprised if you ask somebody what Emmett Sheehan did this year, 2.5 ERA, more than a strikeout per inning, not many walks. He was really, really good for them because they invested in their minor league system in a way that anybody can do, but they also do. So that's where they're smart. But yeah, I mean, they can withstand mistakes, and small market teams can't.
Let me just, for people to understand, with the luxury tax that the Dodgers will pay, their payroll expenditure this year was $586 million. Okay, that was number one. The Blue Jays this year with their luxury tax bill, and they only paid $10 million in luxury tax, $290 million, right? That's number 5 in baseball. The Kansas City Royals actually had the 17th biggest payroll, and the tax includes all the benefits and all this kind of stuff. So when we talk about 130, that's really just the salary part of the equation. But when you talk about everything that goes into it, the Royals total payroll 174, and they were at 17th. Right? Like, I mean, 17th. They're right there, kind of like average-ish. They're at 174, and I think where the Dodgers are at 586. Like, just speaks to, just how far and above. Like, the Dodgers are a great team. Well, they should be. I mean, how could they not be? Right?
Mhm.
Like,
well, good on them for doing, because the
Yes.
Mets should be too, and they missed the playoffs.
but it does, yeah. And you're right. The Mets are second with their luxury tax, but they're second at 427.
It's not even close. Yeah.
So it's 100, and it's basically it's almost the Royals payroll less from 1
Wow.
to 2.
Wild. That is
when it comes to
crazy.
the amount of money. Like, I know everyone's like, oh, the Dodgers have a big payroll. I don't think they really understand. I will say this. One of the things I think is going to have to be looked at. I say that, but I think these numbers quantify Shohei like he's actually getting paid now. Right? I think when they factor the luxury tax numbers, they're having to pay like he's getting paid now.
Yeah, they factor that on cost of living, so it ended up being like 462 million. I can't remember the exact number, something like that. So they look at him as 46 million a year, whatever it is.
So
whereas he's actually making 2 million on today's payroll.
I think there is an element of cooking the books for the Dodgers because they're doing it. And I still, to this day, everyone keeps telling me like it's not going to be a big deal when they are actually paying him and he's not playing. And I'm like, okay.
Not for this ownership group. They're going to sell.
Right. I think that's probably what they're going to end up doing. But, if they keep stacking those contracts, maybe there will be a day where like, look, the Dodgers suck. They have a lower payroll right now than the Royals because they're paying 7 guys who are in rocking chairs now. Maybe that will be the case. Maybe it won't. And baseball will continue to be completely lopsided in what it is they're doing. I don't know. Listen, we want to get into, of course, Vinny Pasquantino and his contract. We'll do it right after you hear from our friends at Frontier Justice and Greenlight.
Greenlight Dispensary, voted Kansas City's best dispensary and your go-to for quick, convenient service. With 4 locations across the Kansas City area, we're never far away. Our drive-through and express windows make it easy to get in, get out, and get on with your day. Our award-winning service is powered by a team of experts dedicated to making your experience seamless and enjoyable. It's no wonder we've been voted the best. Convenient locations, fast service, knowledgeable staff. That's the Greenlight difference. Visit us today.
This episode of Kaufman Corner is brought to you by Frontier Justice, where freedom is a lifestyle grounded in safety, responsibility, and respect. With locations in Lee's Summit, Missouri, Kansas City, Kansas, and Jenks, Oklahoma, Frontier Justice offers firearms retail, a premier indoor shooting range, and training all under one roof. Whether you're new to shooting or a seasoned pro, you'll find expert staff, top-tier gear, and a strong sense of community. Faith, family, freedom. That's what Frontier Justice stands for. Visit frontier-justice.com to learn more.
All right, let's talk about Vinny Pasquantino and his contract. Is it the prudent? First of all, let's talk about what he means to this club beyond just the numbers. What is Vinny Pasquantino to the Kansas City Royals?
Well, that was my second on my list of pros. Is he's a leader in the clubhouse. He's a leader on the field. He's a mature guy. He's the guy that's got your back. He's the guy that when you're on the field, you're looking over there like, man, I'm glad that guy's on my team. He's going to go to war with me all the time. So yeah, I mean, he is without the money, without the numbers, without the offense, he's just the guy that you're going to want around because he's going to be the cornerstone of your clubhouse. And that's important. It's a culture that the Royals have worked really hard over the years to change. And they've done it, and they've done a great job of it. They're getting guys with that kind of character and stability and maturity, and he's that guy. Goes a long way.
Yeah. David, clubhouse president, without a doubt. I think he's the leader of the team. Bobby Wood Jr. is the best player. Vinny Pasquantino is the heart of this team. Mm-hmm. Really tough to not have him on the team, right? Has been an RBI machine for the last 2 years. He did show more potential to draw a walk. I'm surprised that he has not walked more, particularly over the last couple of years where he's been driving in the runs. And maybe that's a product of they haven't put good enough behind him, and maybe that will come back around. Health, I don't know. Maybe we answered that problem. I know he bristled a lot when we talked to him in the offseason, Randy and I, about the stigma of being a guy who's hurt all the time. Not super young. He's already 28. Next year will be his 28th season. So if you're talking about locking him up, you're locking up 28, 29, 30. And so then you're buying into the 31 plus. He blocks Jack Caglione from the position that he would normally play. Like, those are some of the cons. What is pros and cons? How do they add up in your mind for Vinny Pasquantino? More pro, more con?
Well, I think obviously
more pro, but way beyond.
We can talk about the clubhouse all day long, because that's a tough. You can't measure it, and so it's very difficult to look at that and also sell it, because if you look at the reality, I mean, Vinny in his career, he was on Fangraphs wins above replacement. He was a 1.5 win player this year and a 1.5 win player last year. You don't lock that up on the field for the actual performance. You don't lock up a first baseman long term with those kind of numbers, because they're kind of middling. But and this is where it shifts. I think that there is something to knowing how to drive in a run. I really do. I think that there is something to knowing hitting is not just. I mean, hitting is putting up numbers. Yes, hitting is hitting 300 and slugging 550 and all that. But I also think that there are times when Vinny knows the situation exceptionally well. I also think that he sometimes knows it too well. and so he will. There's a runner on third, and this less so this year. Didn't work as well. But like in 2024, he had all the sacrifice flies. I think he sold out when he could have done more. I think there are times when he goes, okay, there's an RBI at third base. Great. There's also an RBI at the plate. And maybe some of that seeped into this year when he hit 32 home runs. So I do think there's still some development going on, but it's such an interesting case because first basemen don't get paid generally. Pete Alonso hit the open market looking for 6 years and 170 million last year, I think was the number he had talked about. He ended up getting a 2-year deal with an opt-out, and he's going to opt out. We'll see what he does. He's not going to have a qualifying offer attached to him. But first basemen typically just don't get paid. So on the field, I think there are two questions. One, I don't think you'd move him. I think you let him play out his arbitration years. I don't think you clear the spot for Caglione unless Caglione starts to really hit. But the question, do you extend him beyond that? I don't think you need to, because I mean, some of these free agent contracts, they're not even all free agent, but like Matt Olson is getting $21 million a year. That's in 3 years, that's nothing. It's not as much now, but in 3 years, it's even less. Christian Walker, a little older, but 3 years and $60 million. If that's what it takes when he's a free agent, sign him then. Do it then. Don't worry about it. You're not going to get that much of a discount on an extension right now. But I think he means too much to the team to move in any way. And I don't think you can move him. I don't think there's a need to extend him.
Okay. So you quoted the Fangraphs war at what? 1.3,
1.5 each the last 2 years.
1.5 each the last 2 years. On Baseball Reference, it's 2.4, right? And he's the 6th most valuable player on the team this year. Now, 6, yeah. I think will be like, I think old school guys would be like, wait a minute, he's 30 and 100. Like he's number 1, right? He had the best year. Okay, well, that factors in defense. And I do, and I like WAR, but it's kind of like PFF, grades for football players. It's an opinion. He did his job. He didn't do his job. I know it's all mathematically driven. And like we said, we've got two different wars that people look at and everything. But, even if in the players that had more, Bobby Witt Jr., Michael Garcia, I don't think anybody would argue with that, right? Noah Cameron, 3rd. 4th, Chris Bubich, even with being hurt. 5th, Michael Wacha. And then 6th, Vinny Pasquantino. Even if he is 6th, and I think there are people that are like, well, wait a minute, he was there every day, so he's definitely – and then there's the whole hitter-pitcher thing. But, he was there every day, so you got to bump him up over Bubich, right? Because Bubich was only there for part of the year, so your availability is big part of your ability. Wherever you want to put him, are you really wanting to walk away from your fifth or sixth best player, even if that's all that he is? And the answer is no, because somebody's still got to replace that. The question, will he be your fifth or sixth best player in 4 years? Because you've got him for 3. And the question I think also is, what is your clubhouse atmosphere like? How much does chemistry really matter less? And if you have a pissed off Vinny Pasquantino or a pissed off Bobby Wood Jr., because Vinny's his boy and Vinny's not getting taken care of, how much does the chemistry of the clubhouse, how much do you have to think about that? And what is it worth maybe overpaying a little bit to make sure that that is a healthy environment?
I think you do need to pay attention to that, because if you get one or both of those guys unhappy, then they're angry at the front office. Look, when an opposing team that has potential in a year or two, or even the next season, to become a free agent, and he's somebody that is attractive to your team, they hit a single, they walk, they go to first base, playing against the Royals, who are they going to talk to? And the more advanced guys, the more experienced guys are going to have those type of conversations, not like, hey, Vinny, what's up, man? Yeah, I saw you hit 2 home runs yesterday, man. That's good. Way to swing it, stuff like that. Sure, those conversations happen, but there's also conversations that happen like, hey, man, when you get a chance, give me a call. I want to talk about Kansas City. Tell me what you think. You were talking a little earlier as we were doing comparisons about the Royals outfield. And we know what Isbell is, but our corner outfield problem has existed for a long time. And if we're going to get free agents in here, if we're not going to end up, we're still a long way from developing a solid, strong corner outfielder within our system. There's hope, but that hope is down the line. So right now it's going to be free agents. And so this is one of the ways that you draw them in. So it's not just the clubhouse. It's not just showing solidarity or loyalty or something like that. People are going to talk. And when you have a couple of your frontline guys with personality like Bobby Wood Jr. and Vinny Pasquantino, then it's going to be a situation where they're going to be able to be spokespeople for you, and they need to do that.
Yeah. Recommendation in the end is what? What do the Royals do? David, if you're sitting there, you're one of the lieutenants for JJ Piccolo. What are you telling JJ to do with right now with Vinny Pasquantino? Right now and moving forward with Vinny Pasquantino?
So I think a lot of it depends on your guys and what they feel like. If you're going to get pushback from not giving him security, give him security. I think that there's enough that you can count on with him. And real quick on the injuries, he's had 2 injuries. Really, he had a shoulder injury that they knew about, that they knew could become something that would be a problem. It did. They fixed it. It should be over. I think that's their thought process from what I've heard, is that it was a problem. They fixed it. It's done. And then he had a fluke injury. He had a fluke injury that a guy ran into his hand on a bad throw from a pitcher. It can happen to anybody. I don't necessarily see the injury label. He played 150 games in 2022 or 21. I can't remember what year it was, but before he came to the big leagues. And then he did it again this year. So I'm not too worried about that part. And I'm not too worried about his skills eroding. I do find interest in the fact that his walk rate has just dropped from his rookie year. But I think the kind of skills that he has, he's big and strong. He can drive the ball. He doesn't swing and miss. Good contact, smart hitter. If Bobby Witt Jr. says, I want him on the team for 5 years, give him a 5-year deal. I don't care. It's not going to hurt. You're not going to get hurt by doing it, I don't think, is my point. I also think from a baseball perspective, from a stats perspective, let him play out his arbitration years. And if nobody has a problem with that, when he hits the open market, you negotiate with him. And if he's still worth it, you give him 3 years and $60 million like Christian Walker, and you move on.
Yeah, that's interesting. Les, what would be your recommendation?
I'd say right about the same thing. I don't think that you have to get to a point where you just blow the doors off and all of a sudden it's major league news that he gets some record deal and the Royals are just showing that much loyalty. You don't want to spend all your money, especially as a small market team. But, I echo what David said, keep him happy. I'm interested to know the relationship, like with his agent and how that would work with the club. Something that we don't know unless it comes out. But I would do the same thing. Let him play out a little bit, but I wouldn't delay too long. I still think he's enough of a cornerstone of this team where sooner than later I'd go ahead and extend him.
I'm with you, and I believe that look, I watched Todd Helton make a big fat check and play for bad Rockies teams. What's his name? The catcher that moved to first base with the Twins.
Morneau?
Oh,
Or Mauer.
Joe Mauer. Joe Mauer. And it's like, okay, and it was kind of Mike Sweeney-esque in the sense that they signed Sweeney and that was the only guy. I don't want to see that, right? Like and fans don't come out for it. The idea that, well, we need their favorite players got to be here. If you suck, no one's coming. So you got to build a winning team. And I say that to preface for the fans, they might have to trade Vinny Pasquantino, right? And it's going to suck. And one day you might be in year 6 of the Bobby Witt Jr. deal, and he has won 2 MVPs, and it's clear that somebody's going to give him $50 million a year for his mid-30s or $60 million a year by that point. And it's not going to be worth it. And you're going to have to trade Bobby Witt Jr. I want this fan base to know that they've turned things around by following the math. And if you follow the math, you're going to have to wave goodbye to some guys. But to David's point, I think the market has dictated, and I think Vinny Pasquantino's smart enough to understand the market. I don't think he'll be, out there expecting the 6-year deal. I think he can look at it and go, okay, I know what it is. And if I can get some security here, let's do it. And I think he would probably sign on for a reasonable price. And then I do think Vinny Pasquantino is a guy that if he's in your clubhouse and you do go get somebody who has talent, but is one of those guys, unless you had to have known him, there are guys that, he's all right if he's around good guys, but you put him next to a jerk and he becomes a jerk, right?
Yeah.
They're the chameleons. I mean, I think everybody in every walk of life in the office, this guy's all right if he's hanging with us because we treat people the right way. But man, we bring this jackass in and he's picking on the fat kid and he joins in with whatever the crew is doing. Well, when Vinny Pasquantino's there, it sets the tone. Mm-hmm. And so I think you can, bring in guys that are followers and they will follow a quality example from Vinny Pasquantino. So I think that is important. I would be for signing him and, kind of the Cole Reagans, guaranteeing his money through the arbitration, giving him that, and going ahead and giving him 2 years. I mean, I think he's a cerebral enough hitter that if you sign him to a 5-year deal, you're not going to hate what you have at 31 and 32. And I think that would be worth it for the clubhouse, for the continuity. And it even kind of bridges you into going beyond where Bobby Witt Jr. may be. If Bobby Witt Jr. is traded at the end, because I don't even think of it as like 7 years. Like this, they have to trade him before, they either have to get through 5 years and go, we're going to guarantee the back end of that. We want you here. Or they have to get through 5 years and go, it's going to be time to move on, either because he's so good.
It's 2028.
Yeah.
That's the year.
It's not 7 years. It's 5 years. And then maybe a sixth while you figure out what's the best way to trade him. And that would bridge a little bit with Vinny Pasquantino. I think he'd be worth it. I think he'll be worth it. And I do think that presence and that leadership and the fact that there is a quality guy that at the end of every game, when it sucks, he stands there by his locker and he answers the questions. And you don't look like a bunch of boobs, right? Yeah. You don't look like an out of control monkey house, with you guys doing stupid things. Jose Guillen being the lead guy is a disaster. And it's not just because, your team sucks. It's because your chemistry sucked. And I think there is something to that clubhouse. And I think Vinny Pasquantino does it. I'd be in favor of a 5-year deal for a responsible number. And that's ultimately the question, right? To your point, Les, what is his agent going to ask for?
Yeah.
I would tend to think Vinny's the type of guy that's like, he's going to take control of those negotiations. And that's another reason. Yeah. It's another reason why I think it needs to get done in the off season, because Vinny worked so hard and I think can get in his own head. And I think it was in his own head a little bit with his hitting. We all agreed. We had confidence he'd come out of it, but Vinny's going to pay attention to that contract and he's going to want to be involved and he's going to be talking to his agent. Well, this, and if they do this, I don't want that going on during the regular season with him. Bobby Witt Jr., you want to negotiate with him during the regular season? Fine. Because I guarantee you, he's like, nah, my thing. Right? Like you guys go do that. I'm over here.
Bring me a number later. Let me know. And I'll say yes or no.
Dad, agent, you guys work it out. And when it's time to sign, put it in front of me and I'll sign. And that works for him. And that's great. But I don't think that's how Vinny probably conducts business. And I think he's more like he wants to know what's going on. So I think you need to get it done in the offseason when you do it. So we'll see. All right, real quick prediction on the World Series. It's 3-2 right now as we record this. It goes back to Toronto. David, what do you got?
I think the Blue Jays win it. I think they take Game 6. Actually, I don't. If it gets to Game 7, I think the Dodgers win, but I think the Blue Jays win it tomorrow night.
Les?
I'm also taking Toronto, but I'm gonna give the Dodgers Game 6, but Toronto's gonna win it at home.
Okay. Yeah.
Game 7.
I hate to be a flip flopper, but my prediction of Dodgers in 6 is already dead. So in a way,
you can still take it. You can still take it.
I'm starting new. I mean, I should just stick with the Dodgers and say I went with the Dodgers, but it really does. To me, I thought the Dodgers looked kind of dead-eyed in that game. Like, yeah, we have some issues. We have some problems. Denny said it for a lot of years. The starting pitcher goes out and shoves next game, then maybe it'll look a little bit different. But I also think you can crack a starting pitcher. Like, the best starting pitcher who maybe wins 20 games is 20-7 these days. Like, and he makes 32 starts. The club overall is like, 22-10, right? They still lose games. So I'll say the Blue Jays get it done. I think probably 6 though. If they're going to get it done, I think it's probably at 6. Listen, you can always support the Kaufman Corner podcast by supporting our great sponsors, Italian Delight. I mentioned their great lunch specials, daily lunch specials, starting at under $10. The first to bring true New York-style pizza to Kansas City. 50 years ago, they're on State Avenue, about 3 miles east of the Speedway. Go see them today for lunch. Our buddy Renee is often in the chat room. Big fan of the Kaufman Corner podcast. Our friends at Frontier Justice, Lee Summit, in KCK, Jenks, locations to help you out. If you're new to shooting, a seasoned pro, expert staff, top gear, strong sense of community. That's what you get at Frontier Justice. Find them online at frontier-justice.com by our friends at Greenlight Dispensary. 15 locations in Missouri, more on the way. Greenlight is your go-to for all your cannabis needs. Tell them you saw it right here on the Kaufman Corner podcast. And our friends at Northland Injury Law, for 40 years, they've been Kansas City's go-to for accidents. Voted Kansas City's #1 accident lawyers. Whether you're hurt at work, in a car accident, text HURT to 22222 or call 816-400-HURT. For David Lesky from Inside the Crown, for Les Norman from Breaking the Norm, I'm Soren Petro saying thank you very much for joining us here on the Kaufman Corner.